Hello everyone, welcome to The Author's Crown. My name is A Crown. In this channel I will present to you stories written by both myself and occasionally stories written by good friends of mine. So without further ado, let's get this show started. Today's story is another fan fiction crossover, this time between the DC Universe and the Alien franchise. Now I know what you're thinking, this has been done before, but I wanted to do my own version where the Xenomorphs were created in the DC Universe. Now I present to you The Nightmare at Facility 426. Sun shines overhead as Jason Todd, aka the Red Hood, rides down the highway towards Star City on his bike to see his best friend Roy, aka Arsenal. After passing a sign that says Star City 5 miles, he thinks to himself, how did I let Roy convince me to come to a party? The party was for the anniversary of Jason's death at the hands of the Joker all those years ago. As he says this, the images flash of Joker bashing his head in with a crowbar, and the explosion flashed vividly through Jason's mind, causing him to need to pull over his bike. Damn it! He yells at himself, trying to make the thoughts go away. As Jason clutches at his head, his phone goes off. He taps his earpiece and types in the encryption key on his phone to open up a SOS transmission and coordinates from a company called Waylex. Jason then hops back on his bike and gets back on the road again, heading in the direction of the coordinates, thinking softly to himself, I'll catch up with Roy afterwards. This won't take too long. He arrives a short time later. He looks around and sees nobody. He then grabs his bag and heads over to a nearby alley. He takes off his jacket and removes his shirt, revealing his Red Hood chest plate. He puts his jacket back on and grabs his holsters and guns out of his bag and puts them on. He also grabs his helmet and puts it on. He then goes back over to the building, sets his bag back down on his bike, and pulls his grappling hook out of his utility belt and zips up to the top of the building. As he's climbing over the ledge of the roof, he's met by the bows of Arsenal and Oliver Queen, aka the Green Arrow. Hey buddy, I see you got the SOS too. He chuckles and says, yeah, I was just about to check out this building by myself, but then I seen how big it is, and then I was just about to call for backup. Roy responds, well, I guess you don't need to call backup. We're already here. Green Arrow looks at him and says, bad little redhead. Don't you know it's not nice to investigate on someone else's turf without as so much as a howdy do? Didn't Batman teach you anything? Jason looks at him sternly through his helmet and says, howdy do? Oliver says, okay, well, thank you. Was that so difficult? Jason stares at him angrily and silently. Then they all head towards a small sealed vent. Jason pulls out a small torch from his belt and cuts open the vent. They all hop in, and as Jason lands inside the vent, the alarms start blaring. Breach in vent 15Z of level 15. Activate vent clearance. As the alarm continues on a loop, the three heroes hear what sounds like fire igniting. Jason scans the vent with his helmet and sees a panel that has a flame dispersal system. Go, go, go! Get out of the vent! He yells, causing Arsenal to scurry out and land next to Green Arrow on the floor beneath the vent cover. Jason falls out as the flames spread through the ventilation, and Jason hears what sounds like steel clashing. He scans it again, and after the flames dissipate, he sees that a large piece of steel has securely covered the vent hole they just entered through. Well, that's just great. How are we going to get out now? Roy asks the both of them. Green Arrow responds, how about we find the reason behind the SOS and then we'll worry about the exit. Jason and Roy both agree and follow Green Arrow towards the elevator. They all try the door, but after failing to pull it open, Roy shoots an explosive arrow, which fails to dent it. All three look at each other in shock. Jason tries to put some explosives on it, which both have no effect. Green Arrow looks at Roy and Jason and says, I don't know who made these doors, but I need arrows made out of this stuff. Jason walks over to a nearby computer and plugs in a drive to begin hacking it, but the drive sparks and the computer shuts down. He looks at the other two and says, okay, if this computer can outperform BatTech, then these guys aren't just regular scientists. We need to search around and find what's going on. Green Arrow suggests taking one floor at a time for each of them, and maintaining communications throughout as they clear each floor. Roy and Jason agree and descend down to the next two floors. Roy looks at Jason and says, hey, Jace, I'm glad you did decide to come up and see me. Jason smiles underneath his helmet and says, "It's no problem. If nothing else, at least this mission will make me not have to think about the terrible party you were planning." Roy laughs and responds, "Oh, don't think you're getting out of it just because there's trouble." Jason nods and gives Roy a fist bump. Roy then steps through the door nearby and looks out into the dark hallway with an arrow at the ready. He hears rustling and spins around towards the sound of it. He sees nothing and calls out, "If anyone's there and doesn't want to get an arrow to the knee, you might want to come out now." A man in a lab coat rushes out hurriedly, grabbing at Roy and begging him, pleading, "Help me, please!" The man looks around and is sweating profusely. Roy tries to get the man to relax and says, Hey, it's okay. My name is Arsenal. Just tell me what's going on." The man looks out at the dark, terrified, and Roy asks again, "What is going on?" The man responds, "You have to kill me." Roy looks at him stunned and goes to say no, but the man interrupts him and says again, "You need to kill me, please." As he tries to finish his sentence, he convulses onto the ground and he lifts his chest up in the air while screaming in pain. Roy tries to help the man as he is convulsing on the ground. Then Roy hears cracking, and as he takes the man's hand, the scientist says, "Run." As the scientist utters his last word, blood spews from his chest, and Roy falls back as he sees a small creature poking out. The thing growls and crawls away from the man's body as Roy grabs his arrow. But before he can fire, it's gone, and Roy hears growling and notices shapes in the darkness approaching. As it nears, Roy shines a light and sees it. It stands taller than Roy does, has a face similar to the smaller one he just watched emerge from the scientist's chest, and swings its tail around slowly like a dancing cobra. Roy loads the arrow into his bow and fires. The creature catches it in its mouth and bites down, snapping it in two. Roy looks and sees the creature has a second mouth where its tongue would normally be. Roy loads again, but this time the creature charges him. But before Roy can fire or the creature can get a hold of him, a gunshot rings out and green viscous blood flows from the creature's head. Jason walks back up and helps Roy to his feet. But before Roy can fire or the creature can get a hold of him, a gunshot rings out and Jason walks up and helps Roy to his feet. "I heard the screaming. What the hell is that thing?" Jason says. Roy responds to him, "I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's not alone." The sound of growling and hissing echoes throughout the hall. Roy and Jason both see the blood of the creature melt through the floor. "Now I've seen everything," Jason says, and they both begin firing as the creatures can be heard approaching. As they get closer to the stairwell, it bursts open and out steps Green Arrow, who helps drive back the creatures. Jason and Roy fall through the doorway and land against the railing as Green Arrow shuts the door behind them, and the creatures hit against it. He says, "I saw one of those things upstairs. We really need to call in some heavy hitters." Jason tries his earpiece but gets nothing but static. Green Arrow and Roy try theirs as well and get the same result. "Shit! What are we gonna do now? We can't access the computers and now our communications aren't working for shit." Green Arrow replies, "Listen, kid, we just need to." Jason grabs him by the collar and yells out, "Do not call me a kid." Okay, I'm sorry. Just calm down and let's find a way out," Green Arrow reaffirmingly tells Jason. Jason then responds, "Let's go," and apologizes to Green Arrow. Then, snarling can be heard from above them, and Roy looks up and yells, "Go, go, go, more coming!" The three run down 2 floors to get away. Jason looks at the room when they enter and says, "Guys, check out this lab." The red and green archer look around and see a dark and dingy lab that has 3 tanks with unevolved specimens similar to the ones in the above floors. Green Arrow picks up an empty folder and says, "Of course, no paperwork. It would be too easy if they had just left us paperwork." Roy looks over at the first tank and reads the sticker on it, which reads, "Unborn Xenomorph Chestburster." Jason reads the next one, "Stillborn Xenomorph Drone." Ick. Green Arrow looks at the third one, which is empty, and reads, "Xenomorph Facehugger." I do not want to perform any kind of hugging with any of these things. Green Arrow chuckles, but then suddenly a small creature leaps out from behind the computer. Roy quickly shoots it down and it hits the ground splat, spilling its acidic blood around where it hit the floor. Green Arrow says, "So it would probably be best to avoid getting any of that on us." A voice calls out from the darkness, "You can say that again, Blondie." The heroes aim their weapons and stand back to back. "Who's there?" Roy calls out to the mysterious voice. The voice responds, "Relax, boys, it's just me." And out of the darkness steps Renee Montoya, a.k.a. The Question. "Well, what are you doing here, old faceless?" The Question responds, "Well, for your information, Green Arrow, I was investigating this company and followed a trail here to this building when the lockdown started. I managed to send out one last SOS before complete shutdown." Jason responds, "So that's how we managed to pick up the transmission. You already knew what channels to send it on." The Question says, "Right. Now, after I sent out the signals when I ran into some of those things on the floor below us." Roy asks, "What the hell are they?" The Question answers, "I don't know. I didn't get much chance to look into it, but from the look around here, I'd say it's some kind of bioengineered creature or weapon." Jason says, "Leave it to a big company to do something stupid, like make creatures and let them get out of control." As Jason rants on, Roy looks out into the darkness and hears the sounds of small things moving. He says, "Guys, we might want to move, like now." Green Arrow says, "What is it?" Looks like another creature leaps out from the darkness. As it flies through the air, Roy, thinking quickly, shoots it directly in the center. As the arrow hits, it causes blood to spill out and splash on the left side of Green Arrow's face. He screams out in pain as the blood burns him, and Arsenal quickly checks on him as the sound of more creatures gets closer. "We need to leave, like, now." Question responds, "The building has a complex tunnel system beneath it. That's going to be our best chance to find a way out." Arsenal and Red Hood help Green Arrow to his feet, and then follow the Question down more stairs as small creatures follow behind him. Red Hood shoots a couple of them, but the larger ones just trample over the dead ones. They reach the last floor of the stairwell and find a locked door. Jason quickly kicks it open. Green Arrow, still nursing his face wound, asks, "Okay, I really need to know what the hell are these things?" The Question answers, "Like I told you, I don't know, but we really need to get out of here before these things catch us." "Understatement of the year, Montoya," a mysterious voice coming from the darkness says. 5 figures step out. The first 3 are revealed as the mind-controlling villain known only as Hypnota, the tech-savvy hack, and martial arts expert Bronze Tiger. Then the last 2 reveal themselves to be Rose and Slade Wilson, a.k.a. Ravager and Deathstroke. Red Hood looks over at Rose and says, "Back in jail again, huh? What did you do this time?" Ravager looks at Red Hood scornfully, then points at Deathstroke and replies, "Trying to kill him." Deathstroke interrupts their back and forth and says, "As fun as it is to reacquaint ourselves, we have more pressing matters to concern with. Rose, like getting the hell out of here." Green Arrow pushes something heavy to block the door. Green Arrow asks, "What the hell are you doing here, Slade? Waller send you to answer the SOS and pick the bones?" Hypnota angrily answers him, "None of your business, Archer." She begins to raise her hands to use her powers, but Arsenal has his bow up first. He smiles and tells her, "Try it. Please give me a reason." The other villains prepare to attack, and the hero is ready to defend, but a small voice interjects and says, "We really need to be finding a way out of here, or we're all going to die." Bronze Tiger says, "Hack is right. We can fight each other later, but right now we just need to get out of here alive." The sound of the creatures come from all around, and Arsenal says, "Okay, do you guys have a way out of here?" Hack replies, "I just need to get to the security room to access the central system so that I can find us a way out of here." The sound of the creatures clawing on the walls draws their attention. "Sure, who wants to go first?" Green Arrow says. Deathstroke looks up and says, "We can use the vents to get around the creatures. They don't look smart enough to check them." Green Arrow replies, "Yeah, with those things running around, you can count me out." Deathstroke looks at him again and says, "Some hero you are. We don't all need to go at once. Just one of us should go, then guide the others to the security room." Red Hood responds, "Deathstroke's right. I'll go first." Rose pulls him aside and asks, "Are you sure about this, Jason? Do you really trust Slade's plan?" He hugs her and says, "Well, I don't trust anybody, but at least if I go, I can make sure your old man there doesn't just leave us behind." She replies, "Okay, Jason, just please be careful." Red Hood takes off his helmet and kisses her. Deathstroke looks over at them and shakes his head, then says, "Loverboy, if you're gonna go, then just go." Hack hands Red Hood one of their squad earpieces, and he puts it in his ear, and then puts his helmet back on and climbs up to the vent and squeezes his way in. He crawls down a ways, and then he can be heard over the communications saying, "I made it to an intersection. Which way am I supposed to be going?" Hack responds, "Go left and then take the first right you see. It should lead you straight to a grate in the security room." Green Arrow comes over the communications and says, "Hood, can you see any of those things outside of the room?" Red Hood responds, "No, but I can hear them underneath me." The line goes quiet for a minute, and Hood says, "Ah, crap, one of them's in here." Ravager, with worry on her face, says, "Jason, hurry up, get out of there." Red Hood says, "Not today, you son of a bitch." The sound of gunshots echo through the vents, followed by the squealing sound of a creature dying. Hood comes back over the comms and says, "I'm okay, it was one of the little ones," as he continues crawling through the vents. "You know, I didn't get a good look at it, but these things kind of look like Starro." Green Arrow answers, "Oh, really? I don't remember Starro ever having acidic blood." As he says this, Jason comes back over the comm saying, "Okay, I'm in the security room." Hack responds, "Okay, go to the nearby terminal." Jason does and then asks, "What do I do?" Hack begins walking him through hacking it and finding a map of the facility. Deathstroke says, "Look at the camera and tell us how many of these things are outside of the room." Red Hood scans the monitor and says, "I don't see any at the moment, but these things seem to like to hide in the dark. So let's just assume they're around." A short moment later, he says, "Okay, I got the info downloaded. I'm on my way back." He looks down and drops the drive back to Hack. "Okay guys, I'm coming through next." And as he finishes his sentence, he's quickly snatched away, being pulled through the vents. The loud squealing of the creatures can be heard, followed by gunshots, lastly followed by silence. Rose screams out for Jason. Deathstroke grabs her by the wrist and says, "Rose, we have to go." She hits and yells at him, "No, I'm not leaving without him." He keeps telling her, "He's gone, Rose. Let's go before we end up like he did." Arsenal and Green Arrow cover their six, and Bronze Tiger leads the group, clawing and slashing his way through the creatures. Question calls back, "Don't let the blood hit you, it's acidic." Rose finally pulls away from Deathstroke, but the question stops her from running. It says, "You can't go back, that's not what he would want." Rose just cries and cries as the group continues to run. They soon reach another empty lab, and Bronze Tiger tells Green Arrow and Arsenal to barricade the door. Rose storms off to the other side of the room as Deathstroke asks Hack, "So, do you have a way out for us?" Hack pulls out her computer and inserts the drive, and a layout of the entire facility appears on screen. Hack says, "Okay, so we are here on the first sublevel, and the exit is here." She points to a large line going straight up. Hypnotis says, "So we need to just get there, seems fast enough." Hypnotis says, "Okay, so we just need to get right there. Seems easy enough." Hack responds, "It's not. Firstly, it's only accessible from the very bottom level of this entire system. Secondly, it's only unlockable with a physical access card, which we don't have, I might add. We also don't know how many of these things are between here and there. Lastly, that tunnel is a straight vertical climb, and it's a very tight climb. We would have no room to cover ourselves." Bronze Tiger says, "We will deal with that later. Right now, we need to find where this access card could be. I don't want to be trapped down there with nowhere to go." Hax types some more into her computer, and she exclaims, "Boom! Was able to track it. It's only a couple levels down." Deathstroke looks over at Bronze Tiger. "What do you think? Should we go as a group, or send a few ahead to get it?" Bronze Tiger breathes to himself and answers, "No, I'll go ahead. There's no point in us all going and getting killed." Arsenal says, "Yeah, none of you are going anywhere without one of us three. I don't trust any of you." "I'm going too," Hypnota says. Bronze Tiger then sighs and says, "Fine, Hypnota, Arsa. You two come with me and we'll find the card. The rest of you head, fellows." Bronze Tiger then says, "Fine, Hypnota, Arsenal. You two come with me. We will find the card. The rest of you stay here until we come back." Green Arrow walks up and tells Arsenal, "Watch your back. You can't trust any of them." Arsenal responds, "Oh, don't worry. I got arrows for both of them if I need to." Arsenal, Bronze Tiger, and Hypnota walk through the door into the darkness. Question closes it behind them. A few minutes pass, and Rose sits there just staring menacingly at Slade. He says, "You got a problem, daughter?" Rose snaps back at him. You're my problem." Slade stands up and says, "Not my fault your boyfriend got himself killed." Rose responds, "It was your genius plan that got him killed. It should have been you." She pulls out a blade and strikes at Slade. He blocks the attack and says, "You can blame me all you want, but in the end, he just wasn't good enough to get the job done." Question gets between them and says, "This is not the time. We're trapped in here with those things that we don't know anything about." Hack chimes in, "I think I can answer that for us. So when I was hacking in, I saw something about what they called these things." Hack chimes in, "I think I can answer that for us. So when I was hacking in, I saw something about what they called Project XMO. They call these things xenomorphs. They created the small ones out of recovered Starro drones." Green Arrow sarcastically and worriedly replies, "Starro drones? Oh, that's fucking great, man." Rose asks, "So how do they turn into the big ones?" Hack answers, "So the smaller ones, we'll just call them face huggers for now. They implant an embryo in the host like a parasite. Then those embryos grow and burst their way out once they get too big, and then continue growing into the bigger ones called drones." Deathstroke asks, "So what's their weakness?" Hack says, "They don't have one. They were created to be the perfect killing machine. Even when they bleed, it burns like sulfuric acid." Green Arrow kicks a chair over, cursing while he does it. Deathstroke says, "Well, they bleed, so we can kill them." Green Arrow sits down in exhaustion and says, "Great, first monsters, and now I have to deal with Deathstroke sounding like a bad 80s action movie. This is fan-fucking-tastic." Meanwhile, Arsenal, Bronze Tiger, and Hypnota stalk their way through the halls. Arsenal leads the way, making sure it's clear. Bronze Tiger says, "Okay, according to this map Hack gave us, the access card should be in that room with the keypad." Arsenal says, "Keypad? Great. Guess we're just gonna fry our way in." He pulls out a taser arrow and fires it at the keypad. It hits and zaps the keypad, causing it to short circuit. Arsenal says, "Okay, now we should be able to break the door down." Bronze Tiger says, "Okay, cover me." Arsenal stands with his bow at the ready, watching as Bronze Tiger crosses the hallway. Tiger forms a stance and kicks the door in. Arsenal and Hypnota run across the hall and join him in the room. They search it and find a small key-locked safe. Arsenal kneels down and pulls out a pair of lockpicks and begins picking it. Tiger says, "Lockpicking? I thought you were a hero." Arsenal responds, "Vigilante, there's a difference. Not everything I can do is considered legal. Most of it isn't." The safe clicks and Arsenal pulls it open. Tiger laughs as Arsenal hands him the key card. Then the tender moment is interrupted by the hisses and screeches of the xenomorphs. Arsenal says, "Okay, it might be a good time to go." They look out the door and Tiger says, "Agreed." They run into the hall and are greeted by a few creatures staring them down and stalking towards them. Arsenal looks over and says, "Tiger, any ideas?" They back up and Hypnota says, "I have one." "What do you mean?" Bronze Tiger asks. Hypnota slowly approaches the creature and begins to focus her mind control powers on it. The creature just looks at her and steps lightly towards her. Tiger says, "Hypnota, it's not gonna work." She tells him, "Be quiet," and puts both hands up and focuses her power even more. The creature steps back and quiets down. "See? It's working," she excitedly says. The creature screeches and leaps at Hypnota, mauling her to bits as she screams in pain. Bronze Tiger and Arsenal take off down another hallway. Tiger leads the way as Arsenal fires arrows at the pursuing creatures. Bronze Tiger rounds the corner and narrowly dodges a tail attack. He claws the tail and separates the tip of it from the rest. Blood spews and splashes onto Tiger's face. He screams out in pain as Arsenal fires an arrow, hitting the creature in the head and knocking it back. Arsenal helps him to his feet and wipes the blood off of his face. Tiger yells out, "I can't see!" Arsenal says, "I got you, Tiger." He helps him into another room and blocks it behind them. He grabs some nearby gauze and wraps it around his eyes. He calls over his gahums, "GA!" Green Arrow responds, "Arsenal, what's going on? Where are you guys?" Roy checks the door and says, "Hypnota's dead and Bronze Tiger's hurt real bad." Green Arrow says, "Where are you?" "We're 3 rooms down from the security room. We got the card." Arsenal responds, "We're 3 rooms down from the room with the card." Deathstroke chimes in on Tiger's earpiece. "Do you have the security card?" "Yeah," he groans in pain. "We got it." The comms go silent for a moment. Then Deathstroke looks over at the other 3 in the room and says, "I'm going for that card." Rose says, "Oh no you're not, we're all going." Green Arrow and Hack both nod their heads in agreement. Deathstroke looks at them and says, "You all will just slow me down." He draws his gun and points them at Rose and Green Arrow. Rose pulls her swords and Green Arrow draws back his bow. Deathstroke chuckles and says, "You think you 2 can take me out before I shoot?" Hack reaches behind her back and hits a button on her wrist device. It causes a scrambling sound in the squad's earpieces, making Deathstroke wince for just a moment. Green Arrow fires a boxing glove arrow and knocks him out Deathstroke. A short moment later, Deathstroke regains consciousness as Rose is finishing tying his hands up, and then they all head out of the room, pulling Deathstroke along by a rope. Green Arrow comes back over the comms and says, "Well, Deathstroke tried to turn on us. Not surprising. Probably wanted to kill us and leave us to die. But we're on our way to you." Arsenal says, "Okay, what'd you do with him?" Green Arrow responds, "Well, Rose has him on a short leash." Arsenal laughs and says, "Okay, see you soon." He kneels down and tells Tiger, "They're on the way. You're gonna be okay." Bronze Tiger thanks him and Arsenal sits next to him. Tiger says, "You're not too bad for a good guy." Arsenal smiles and says, "You're not too bad either for a villain." A few moments later, Green Arrow peeks around the corner and sees some xenomorphs stalking around and clawing at the door and says, "Arsenal, we're right down the hall, but we got a problem. There's a few of them things outside the door." Roy chimes in, "I got an idea. Did you bring a firework arrow?" "Never leave home without it." "Good thinking, Arsenal," Green Arrow responds. He loads one up in his bow and says, "Ready to fire. You 2 better be ready to run." Arsenal responds, "I just moved the door block. Ready to go on your mark." Green Arrow looks down the hall and says, "It may be August, but happy 4th of July." He lets the arrow loose and it flies down the hall whistling and sending sparks around. The creatures chase after the noise and Roy flings the door open and runs out. The second group joins up behind them and they run towards the stairwell. The creature's noises can be heard approaching and Bronze Tiger stops. He looks over at the group and says, "Let me stay behind. I'll hold them off." Arsenal looks over at him and says, "No, you can't even see. How are you going to hold them off?" Bronze Tiger looks at Arsenal and says, "Trust me." Arsenal looks over at him concerningly and says, "Give him hell, man." The group runs off and goes down the stairway as Tiger shuts the door behind them. He readies his claws as the creatures come flying around the corner. They swarm towards him, and he starts swinging. He takes out a few of them, but he's soon overrun. As the others fly down the stairway, they can hear him screaming. They soon reach the bottom and bust through the door. They run down the hall and soon arrive at the entrance to the tunnel. Arsenal hands the card to Hack, who inserts it into the slot. The door opens. Green Arrow Arsenal walk in and look up at the tunnel. They pull out grapple arrows and fire them upwards. And then Arsenal grabs hold of Rose and Deathstroke. And he hits retract. They both go flying upwards. Green Arrow, Question, and Hack do the same as Deathstroke reaches for his belt. They zip upward. They soon arrive at the top. They all gather their composure as they look out at the sun. She walks over towards him, but as she gets close, one last xenomorph climbs out of the tunnel. It leaps at Rose. Deathstroke pushes her out of the way and tackles the xenomorph back into the tunnel. As they're falling, Deathstroke reaches for his belt and pulls out the detonator. He activates it, sending an exploding fireball up to the tunnel and outwards. The screaming and hissing of the creatures can be heard. The tunnel collapses and Rose looks over at it and says, "Why? Just why? Even after everything I said to him, he still sacrificed himself for me." The Question walks over and puts her hand on Rose's shoulder and says, Fathers, no matter what, will do anything for their children. Rose looks up at her, a tear falling. She picks up Slade's helmet and looks at it, then gets up and walks away with the others. Sometime later, Amanda Waller looks at a screen and reads through the debriefing of the squad. She turns around and looks up and says, "Is it done? Is everything wiped?" A shadowy figure replies, "Yes, the entire facility was wiped off the face of the earth about an hour ago. The samples in my office are safe, of course." Waller stands up and shakes the figure's hand and says, "Very good. I assume for sending the squad in to test them. I'm free to have access to the creatures." The figure steps out of the shadows, revealing Lex Luthor, who says, "Of course, Miss Waller." And that's the story for today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and thank you for listening to The Author's Crown.
Riddle me this. What do you get when you get 3 Power Ranger fans who also write Power Ranger fan fictions and upload them on separate podcasts and YouTube channels, and you happen to put the 3 of them together and they form a unique Power Ranger storyline? Here's your answer. You get the 3 Ranger Bros, who is myself, Ty Tiger, the Red Cornish Ranger, Mark, and the Cosplay Dude 637. We are the 3 Ranger Bros, and we came up with the idea called Power Rangers Global, a storyline where 4 different Rangers from different universes team up to save Universe 2118, a universe ruled by the gods. Now, if you want to hear Power Ranger Global, you can find it on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast, and you can find that podcast anywhere that podcast can be listened to. So one more time, that's Power Rangers Global on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast. My name is Ace, and I use a device called the Color Matrix, which allows me to hijack alternative universe versions of myself. I have the multiverse at my disposal. From being a Power Ranger, to being a Spider-Man, to piloting the Orville, to being a Vampire Slayer. I can do it all. I can spend 8 hours of my time. Of course, time is different in each universe, but 8 hours of my time piloting a version of myself. So come, explore the multiverse with me. See what my world is like in different universes. Explore the multiverse. If you want to hear such stories, then come and listen to The Color Matrix on Tiger Tales, The Lost Stories, found on YouTube. Hey everyone, and I apologise for interrupting, but I have to tell you guys something about Robin. No, not Dick Grayson, and not Tim Drake, not Jason Todd, and not Damian Wayne. I'm talking about the Robin that I invented. His name is Alex Andrews Jr., and after a lot of the superheroes disappeared on Union Day, Alex decided to take the role of Robin and become Nightwing's sidekick. But I can't tell you any more than that, really. Instead, what I'll do is I'll let the story speak for itself. If you ever want to find out how Alex copes on being Robin, then you can check out War Against Gotham on Tiger Tales, found on YouTube.